My name is Zoe. Standing in the large meeting room filled with top executives, investors, and senior leadership, I'm about to unveil the expansion strategy one single-handedly crafted. The energy in the room is palpable, a mix of anticipation and desperation. Orson, my former boss, looks haggard, his eyes tired and his shirt creased. To my left, Lucas sits slumped in his chair, his face pale, as if he wishes he could disappear. As I power up my laptop to start the presentation, I'm taken back to how I got here. I was born into a middle-class family in a small town. My parents were hard-working individuals. My father was a mechanic, always emphasizing the importance of getting hands-on and doing things right the first time. My mother was a schoolteacher who instilled in me a love for learning and a strong sense of integrity. I joined the company right out of business school, eager to prove myself. At that time, I was 25, full of ideas and energy. The company was on the verge of collapse, expanding too rapidly into international markets without a proper strategy, bleeding money faster than anyone cared to admit. A month later, my boss, Orson, 45 years old and a well-respected figure in the company, assigned me to work on a recovery plan alongside Lucas, a 32-year-old who had a knack for making a good first impression but lacked the substance to back it up. Over the next 3 months, I dedicated myself to the project. I worked 16-hour days, running projections until my mind was numb. I scoured through the international growth plan, identifying the holes that were causing financial hemorrhaging. I mapped out a step-by-step approach to turn the company around. Every calculation, every projection, and every risk mitigation strategy was my work. I even color-coded the spreadsheets to make it easier for the board to understand. Meanwhile, Lucas had a different routine. Every Thursday at 2 p.m., he would leave the office for his standing tea time, as he called it. It was frustrating, but I told myself that the work would speak for itself. Finally, the day of the investor meeting arrived. I watched in disbelief as the investor, a well-known figure in the industry, clapped Lucas on the shoulder like they were old friends celebrating a monumental victory. The handshake seemed to last forever, and Lucas's smile was overly wide. He leaned back in his chair with an air of confidence that made my blood boil. "Brilliant work on this turnaround plan. Your vision saved us," the investor said to Lucas. I sat there, my fingers intertwined, waiting for Lucas to mention my name. 5 seconds passed, then 10, then 15. He thanked the investor without so much as a glance in my direction. The investor continued to praise Lucas's innovative thinking, and others in the room chimed in about his strategic vision. Lucas just sat there, nodding, taking all the credit for the work I had single-handedly done. When the meeting ended, I unclipped my visitor badge from my shirt. The plastic was warm from being against my body for the past 2 hours. I placed it on the table and stood up. "I'm done here." Effective immediately, I announced. The room went quiet for a moment. Orson took a step towards me. "What are you talking about?" he asked. "I'm resigning right now. I'll send you something in writing by the end of the day, but consider this my official notice," I replied firmly. Lucas finally looked at me, and I saw a flicker of panic in his eyes that he quickly tried to hide. Orson tried to persuade me to talk outside, but I was done. I walked out of the building at a normal pace, got in my car, and drove home. As soon as I got home, I thought about all the times Lucas had stolen my ideas. In team meetings, he would rephrase my suggestions as if they were his own. His name would always appear first on project reports that I had written 90% of. He would get invited to leadership dinners while I stayed late at the office finishing the work. That night, I updated my professional profiles. I didn't post any angry rants. Instead, I quietly detailed my experience, skills, and the specific projects I had worked on, ensuring that every turnaround strategy one developed was listed under my name with detailed outcomes. The next morning, I woke up to messages from 3 investment managers at different groups. They had seen my profile updates and wanted to know if I was available to help with their struggling acquisitions. When I spoke to the first one, he mentioned that he had been trying to track me down for weeks after hearing about my work through industry contacts. Over the next few weeks, more and more investment groups reached out to me. By the end of the first week, I had 7 offers. I started taking on projects one by one, then 2 at a time, and eventually 5. The work was intense, but it was rewarding. I was getting paid what I should have been making in a year, and I was being recognized by the decision makers for my work. Orson kept texting and calling, asking me to reconsider. Lucas even sent a single text message saying, "I hope there's no hard feelings. You're really talented and I'm sure you'll do great things." I blocked his number. 6 weeks later, Orson called me again. His voice was strained. "We need help. The expansion is hemorrhaging money worse than before. The board wants you back. Name your price," he said. I asked, "What happened to your brilliant strategist?" The long pause on the other end told me everything. I knew then that Lucas couldn't replicate the results because he didn't create the strategy in the first place. I told Orson that I would consult, but I wasn't coming back as an employee. I was my own boss now. I demanded 4 times my old salary as a consulting rate, direct presentation to the board and investors without any intermediaries, and for Lucas to be present during the presentation. Orson agreed after some hesitation. The 2 weeks leading up to the meeting were a blur. I finished my current projects and prepared for the presentation. The night before the meeting, I couldn't sleep, not out of anxiety, but out of anticipation. I was looking forward to showing everyone who had really done the work. Now, as I stand in front of the room full of people, I start my presentation. I take my time, walking them through every part of the strategy. When I talk about the complex projection that required understanding local banking regulations in 4 different countries, a board member turns to Lucas and asks, "Did you help with this part?" I keep my eyes on the board member and reply, "I worked on this section alone. It required specific knowledge of international finance law." Lucas sits there in silence. As I progress through the presentation, answering every question and clarifying every confusion, I can feel the energy in the room changing. The lead investor finally asks, "When we were here 6 weeks ago, we were told this was Lucas's strategy. Can you clarify the collaboration process?" I look at Lucas, making sure everyone sees me, then turn back to the investor. There was no collaboration. I built this strategy alone over 3 months. Lucas's only contribution was attending the presentation where I explained it to you. The room goes still. Lucas stumbles over his words as he tries to defend himself. One of the board members cuts him off and says, "Answer the question. Did you develop this strategy?" After a long silence, Lucas finally admits, "No, I didn't develop it." The fallout is immediate. Orson says they need to have a separate conversation about the whole situation. The lead investor realizes that their investment decisions were based on an inaccurate assessment of the leadership team's capabilities. When the meeting ends, people come up to thank me individually. They are relieved to have me involved. Lucas leaves the room without saying a word. Orson catches up with me as I'm packing my laptop. "That was intense," he says. "It was honest. You should have paid closer attention to who was actually doing the work," I reply. Orson nods. "We're going to make changes." Lucas is being moved to a different role where he can't claim ownership of other people's work. Over the next 8 weeks, I work as an independent expert with the company. The turnaround starts showing results within a month. The markets they exited stop draining resources, and the markets they doubled down on start generating projected returns. The investors start talking about additional investments. I hear through mutual contacts that Lucas requested a transfer to a different city within 4 months. He couldn't handle seeing the company recover using a strategy that everyone now knew he hadn't created. My consulting work continues to grow. I work with clients in 9 countries, making more in a month than I made in a year at my old job. I'm invited to speak at industry events, and people recognize me for my expertise. 2 years after that fateful meeting, at a major industry event, an older investor approaches me. That presentation you gave 2 years ago, the one where you exposed the credit theft. After that meeting, our board implemented new policies about attribution and recognition. What you did changed how we operate, he says. I smile as I think about that moment when I walked out of the old company with uncertainty but also with a newfound sense of freedom. In the end, walking away was the best decision I've ever made. It led me to build a practice where I'm paid what I'm worth, and my name is rightfully attached to my work.